Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today, talking about our Chicago Bears. Once again, I know people love to just talk about anything with the Bears in the offseason, any little nugget they can get, and any little stretch of a rumor or move and all types of stuff. I get it. It's the offseason. We want to be entertained and engaged. But as I said, with the new hires, the new regime, all that, we are going to have to wait and just see what they do. This whole speculation about who they know and who they talk to and what they did, like none of that matters until we see what they're actually doing. And so we're now starting to see some moves. We're starting to really see some things take shape. And I think, obviously, with free agency coming up and the draft around the corner, we'll really have an idea of the roster. But I think now is a good time to start. Not want to say start, but I'm fine right now with actually talking about what we need and what direction we should go into. Because, again, that's my opinion. Not to say what we're actually going to do, but, you know, it's fun to conversate. So let's talk about it. I would say this. Let's start here. Overall, the direction, not something that I get to pick, but just observing. It's clear to me, and will become more clear as we continue to see more, that we are heading into rebuild mode. So when we talk about rosters and what you need and everything, it depends on what season the team is in. Not the actual season, but, in the church saying. So what mode are you in? What level are you at? And so obviously we're not in the win now mode. We're not competing. I think we're rebuilding. You call it retooling, but it's rebuilding. And so typically in a rebuild, you're going to get rid of expensive players, especially expensive players that are not hands down elite untouchable. And then you're going to trade some capital, or trade people to try to get draft capital, and then probably trade in the draft to get more draft capital. Some so you could pick this year, but some so you could have future picks as well for the next draft, or if you want to move around. So some people believe we are aiming for next season, 2023, and that I wouldn't say we're going to tank. I hope to God we don't tank, but that we're prepared to go out there with a lean roster. And then if we get a top pick and the salary cap increases and all that, then we'll be sitting in a good spot. Now, I don't love that. This ain't the NBA. I don't think that's how you get it, especially with a new coach and everything. But we will see. That's not official. That's just some speculation from some people. But it's clear by the moves that we are in a rebuilding mode. And so we're getting those vets out that might not, again, be untouchable and really count against the cap, which allow us more flexibility if we need to do something this year. And then that allows us to, again, acquire draft capital. So that's what we're looking at. Now let's look at the roster kind of position by position. And I didn't pull up who our free agents are going to be, so I don't know 100%. I am twisted up today. I don't know 100% exactly, but I think, again, just kind of focusing on where the talent level is, if that makes sense. So, number one, quarterback. Obviously, we have Justin Fields, and we are going to go ahead with him as our future. Now, the thing about that is, I'll repeat, I'm not a fan of this build everything around the quarterback. Like, I don't agree that that makes any sense. And people say it all the time. And again, I would ask you, show me where that has worked, because I haven't seen it. Show me where that has worked and the team has been able to be consistent with that because I've not seen it. Like, to be not elite, but to be a star quarterback, like a true star quarterback, you have to at some point raise the level of the people around you. And we're not talking about take any old guy. We ain't talking about Tom Brady, who really played with nothing, no name receivers, and kept the offense afloat. But we're talking about there has to be a meeting of the two. Yes, talent is going to help a lot. And we saw, again, even Tom Brady, his play get elevated when he had some tools. But the quarterback also has to improve the rest of the team. It's all cyclical. Like, the game of football, it's a ultimate team sport for a reason. As much as people worry about fantasy numbers and keep separating everything, they work hand in hand. So the quarterback improves the offensive line with his quick decision making. He improves the receivers by putting an accurate pass where the catch is easier. All those things go together. So you have to meet the two together. So this idea that you have to make everything perfect and you have to stockpile all these things and sacrifice other areas just so the quarterback can be functional, that's never worked out on a consistent basis. So I don't agree with that. If Justin Fields is going to be what we want him to be, then yes, we're going to support him. But at the same time, it's not a go broke mentality, not in my mind. Running back, Dave Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. I really think there's a world where these two could share the load a little more. Khalil Herbert did really good, and they both proved they could do well, even with an offensive line that wasn't the best. But when Montgomery came back healthy, they pretty much just like ghosted Herbert. And so I don't feel like we need to do that. But again, Montgomery, I think, brings a lot, especially just, I don't know, I guess the energy, not to the team, but to the fan base. And so he's going to be a focal point. But running backs are dime a dozen. I don't get too hyped up about that. You could find one. You could draft one. You know, it's whatever. But we have solid talent right there. The receiver position, that's the one that everybody is going crazy over. And I don't understand that. If you watch my draft stuff and everything, then you know how I feel about receivers, how I've been feeling about them for a little bit. Receivers are more dime a dozen like linebackers. They become that. Obviously, I'm not saying that a top tier receiver isn't important or is not a thing that you want, but that talent comes from a lot of different places. It's not a pass rusher where you look at the top pass rushers and it's pretty much across the board top 15 picks. That's not the case with receivers. Just like running backs, you can find those people in a number of places. And so that's one of my things. The other thing is, again, you can find production, not even just top tier. You can find production in different places as well. And so I don't feel personally like, well, you have to go get a top of the draft receiver or you have to spend big money on a big name receiver. I don't feel that way. There's plenty of people that can give you production if you're looking for them. So that's how I feel. And it's cool if it comes across in this draft. But for the most part, I don't think that's our top priority. So we look at Mooney and what he brings. Again, the idea of a number one in this point, I don't think is as big as people are trying to make it out to be. I don't know the system. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think this age offense has shown us you can bring production from different places. Yes, there's still going to be some people that just give it to their number one guy and hope, it works out. but there's a lot more creativity. There's a lot more to do. This emphasis on speed from Ryan and Matt, which is kind of becoming a thing in the league. Not that it hasn't been before, but it's definitely more pronounced. I think with good athletes, you can find ways to get this set up. So I'm not overly concerned about finding a quote-unquote number one receiver. I mean, shoot, even last year, if that didn't show you, Allen Robinson to me is a legit number one. When we didn't have him producing, you had guys like Bird and Grant and whoever being able to produce. Again, it's about what your philosophy and what your system is. If you are coming into it with a strong run game, or at least a extended run game, so if you want to count handoffs, if you want to count quarterback options, you want to count RPOs, you want to count quick screens, if you're coming in with that extended repertoire, and then you have receivers that can make big plays off play action when it's time to attack or go downfield, then you find what works for you. So this idea, yes, you want talent, but at the same time, talent is different depending on what you ask them to do. So it's not impossible to find somebody that's not at the top of the food chain and still get good production out of them. So I'm not too stressed about that. And then tight end. So I don't know. I don't think they'll be bringing Jimmy Graham back, but we got Komet, who I think is solid, man. Other than the fact that his yak is not great, I think he's perfectly fine. You look at all these productive tight ends around the league. Look, tight end, it just comes down to the quarterback and the scheme. If you know how to use them, they can be productive because it's darn near impossible for most people to stop them or to guard them. So I don't think Komet has any low traits besides his yak ability. So I think he's perfectly fine. And again, depending on what the scheme is, you might want somebody that's more of a vertical receiver type tight end. But we'll have to get some other people. And so but I think Komet is solid. Offensive line, that's where it's at. All this discussion doesn't mean much if we don't talk about the offensive line. How that's going to look, how we're going to reshape it, especially with a lot of free agents, I don't know. I really don't know. But to me, that's where my effort is. If I'm thinking about where I'm putting resources, it's the offensive line. And as much as people don't want to believe it, it makes things a lot better. And so when you're talking about protecting the quarterback and having the quarterback be able to process, when you're talking about establishing a strong run game, or when you're talking about finding a running back and plugging them in and getting production, that stems from you having a very functional offensive line. And so that's the reason you look at the Browns, and although Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are named talent, you can have both their backups come in and have 100-yard games sometimes because you have an established offensive line. And so obviously that takes time and everything. And we do have a left tackle prospect who is going into his second year, barely played, and really just did not look good this year. But that's a premium talent, so we're going to have to figure out what to do with that and then continue to go from there. And then we have Whitehair as well. So the offensive line is the one that needs attention. And that might be biased of me, but it is what it is. Some people will be 100% for the trenches, and some won't. And that's what it is. But I don't know. I was thinking, it was funny because I was thinking of the Eagles. Andy Reid hasn't really been the same way, but Andy Reid for a long time was just all about linemen, O-line, D-line in the first round. And so I don't know. We kind of had these ideas of like these skill positions, but again, to me, the trenches is what's most important. So if we don't put out something solid, at least solid, I don't see it happening. And I get the Bengals. That's going to be a bad case because people really go, oh, so you don't need offensive line. Let's not go crazy. But if we don't put together something at least solid, it's just going to be hard to see the rest of it come together. And then defensively, it's definitely going to be interesting. We're going to be retooling pretty hard. So I can start at linebacker. We have Roquan Smith, who we know is excellent and can do whatever we ask him to. Alec Ogletree, to me, was really good last year. Like, beyond good. He was great and very underrated. And so I would love to bring him back because it probably won't be expensive. But I don't know what the scheme is going to be and kind of what type of players they're looking for. So he might not fit. But obviously we have Roquan. That's a big centerpiece there. Linebacker. And I've talked about this too at the draft. Linebacker is kind of in a very weird position where it's not really valued like it was, but at the same time, you could be pretty impactful. So that's what that is. The pass rush. I don't know what's gonna happen with Robert Quinn, if we're gonna keep him or not. The thing is, he's older, but he does make some good money, but I don't think he's like a huge hit. And obviously he was very productive last year. And I think whatever we end up doing, he could help out as long as he's giving it his all like he did last year. So there's that. And then Khalil Mack is gone. Some of our older rotational players are leaving, but we've never had any that really provided anything on the edge that was great. I know some people are getting hyped about Gibson, who's, pretty solid, but definitely, as we know, that's a premier position, and that's something that we struggled with for a while. So nothing new there. We will have to upgrade and figure that out. So there's definitely a lot of room there. And then the interior as well. So Eddie Goldman's now gone. Hicks might walk. Bilal might walk. Again, very specific type of interior D lineman that we might not be going after. We might be looking to reshape that. And so we might be going after a totally different type of player on the interior that might be more penetrating and more adept at the stunts and the blitzes with the quickness and explosion. Who knows? So we'll see how that kind of works out. But there's a lot of building to do on the D-line in general. And then we go to our corners. Another area we've been trying to get. We got Jalen Johnson, who people went way too crazy over last year. Tried to tell you, like, bro, chill out. He is not that guy. Now, he's a guy that really fit what we did. Will we still be doing that? I mean, he's still, this is his third year. So, I don't know. I mean, they could trade him. I don't see him as off limits because this is a brand new regime and we having a brand new system, and he's a very specific system cornerback. And so if that's not something that we're going to do, now they use Xavier Rhodes and everybody in Indianapolis, so it might be possible. It might be possible that we're going to have a very cover two or at least a two shell type base coverage. And so he'll work perfectly fine there. But outside of him, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks. Kyle Fuller did not go on to have a good time, but we still have missed his presence on the other side. Shoot, heck, we might go get him back. I mean, he might be super cheap now, but we got a lot of work to do at the corner spot. And then safeties, we've never replaced Amos, and that's been a revolving door with mixed bag results. And Eddie Jackson is Eddie Jackson. Wouldn't be shocked if he gets traded too. So the defense is going to be need a lot of retooling. Like, you got those key pieces, but for the most part, we are going to be reshuffling that talent. And so again, offensive line, 100%. I'm not ever going to be mad at us doing quality moves for the offensive line. But you have to realize that our defense is not bare, but it is completely retooling. And so when I hear people talk about Chris Olave and this receiver, oh crap, we could have got Mike Williams, but the Chargers signed him. Like, y'all have to look at this roster. We have much bigger needs everywhere else. And so again, I'm not telling, what we should do. It's just looking at where we need to focus our resources and stuff. How you get it done is a creative thing. I don't know who's up on the market. Some people think they know who's on the market. I'm sure Shelby Harris signed that new deal, didn't know he was getting traded. So you don't really know who's going to be up on the market for that. And then free agency, obviously we'll see what they take a stab at. There are some decent pieces. And honestly, he might be expensive, but Teron Armstead's going to be out there. That's kind of crazy. So yeah, we're definitely going to see what they do with free agency and then the draft. Like, I'll be talking about the draft at some point later as I'm digging into that. But for the most part, I don't think this is a great class. It's a very so-so class. Obviously, every year, as I've said, you find the right people to go to the right system. You could get production, but there's not a lot going on in this class that wows me. And so I'm not relying too much on that, but there are some good pieces to get, and so we'll see what we do with that. But again, for me, it goes back to the offensive line. Same thing has been years. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if people just get excited about talking about certain players and free agents, but most of the conversation I'm looking at, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like, it's been 3-4 years now I've been saying offensive line, and it's no different now, especially with some of them going to free agency. And so that's a huge priority. And then with the moves we made, and then just with the free agents we have, our defense needs to be retooled a whole lot. So, no, I'm not really focused on receiver right now. So anyway, yes, that's just kind of our roster. The moves, as I mentioned before, I'm not mad at them. I mean, you got a regime that's not loyal to these people. And again, it seems that the mode is to rebuild. If we were like, okay, we're about to go make a Super Bowl run, yeah, you'd be like, what is these? what are they doing? But that's not the mode we're in. And so we're trying to build up capital. Capital is cap space and draft picks. That's what we're trying to do, so we can use those in different ways to amass talent. And that's the path we're on. If that's the path, then you look at Eddie Goldman. And again, I talked about this in the draft. What is the value of a nose tackle? Yes, Jordan Davis went crazy at the combine, but I was saying even before that, like, what's the value of him? Because at first you're like, it's one of the most dominant prospects. But then you look at the mocks, even though I don't care about mocks, but you listen to what people are saying, it's like, what is the real value of a massive nose tackle these days? And not Eddie Goldman is not Jordan Davis, but still, again, what's the value of that nose tackle, that 1 down, maybe 2 down nose tackle? And so I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. As I've said, we're in nickel about 70+% of the time, and a lot of times we never got interior pass rush unless it was a random spurt by Hicks. We never got nothing, so I'm okay with that. Khalil Mack, people want to put up the numbers. First of all, F a Pro Bowl, like whatever. But people want to put up the numbers and not look at the tape. What Khalil Mack is capable of doing and what he gave us is two different things. He never played up to an elite level on a consistent basis. And I'm talking about in a game, in 2 game stretches, in the season, never. And we still did not have pass. Like, you want to focus on sack numbers, which is cool. I say this all the time. If you have 5 sacks in the game, you're like, oh, that dude went crazy. But if you look at the tape over 100 snaps, and that was the only 5 times you got near the quarterback, that's not great. I don't care what you say is not great. Like, yes, they could come at pivotal moments, but being able to pressure the quarterback and getting a sack are 2 different things. You could have a 3-sack game and the rest you got stoned every single play. That's not good. And so his ability to consistently get pressure and triple team, double team. No, I've watched one-on-one snaps, plenty of them, against the right tackle. I've seen some snaps against tight ends where he didn't do anything. And so Khalil Mack, for all his talent, natural talent and otherwise, no, I've not felt he's ever lived up to what we spent. And also, we got the compensation we got because everybody else knows that. And yes, part of it is taking that massive salary, but people know that he's not, like people trying to talk like he's Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. He's neither of them. He should have been, but he's not. And so it's not just the age, it's just what his performance is. And so I'm okay with him going, freeing up a lot of cap space, and instead of paying an expensive piece to have a so-so pass rush, you might as well just find somebody younger and cheaper to have a so-so pass rush. So I'm okay with that. And then Tariq Cohen, we haven't seen him in a while. But look, my thing with that is, besides injury, because this whole, you're a bust because you injured and all that, blah, 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 I don't agree. Yes, the best ability is availability, but that's beyond people's control. What I will say is that hopefully what Ryan Poles is thinking and Matt, hopefully they understand that good teams are good because the players know their role. You have a role for each starter or rotational guy. They understand their role, and you got the guys who can fit that role. Tariq Cohen has never had a real role with this team. And coming in with a new system, saving some money, guys that have been injured, I'm okay with letting him go. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Yes, he's a great returner. We saw Grant come in, be a great returner, and we got him cheap. Like, it is ways to replace that production. I'm fine with that. So the moves they're making, the moves they'll probably make going forward, I'm fine with. I don't know these people that are raging against it and what their stance is on why they're raging. But for me, I think it falls perfectly in line with what needs to happen. So I'm okay with that. So, yeah, again, I'm not sitting here speculating and telling you what's about to come up. But at least for me, I look at it and see as we got different areas we need to focus on. And number one, you just got to realize we're in rebuild mode. That's just the facts. And it's not like we've been great, so I don't know why that's a crazy thing to say. The other thing people got to realize, if you are one of those people sitting here thinking, oh, we got to turn around, go to Super Bowl, that's rare. That's very rare. So you had McVay do it, and I don't know a lot about that team. And Nagy kind of did that this first year. But people have to realize that, again, that's rare and it's not typical. Typically, you're coming into a new team, inheriting something you got to build up. You're not typically inheriting a really talented team that's ready to go. So people got to understand Nagy and Eberflus is different. Nagy came in off John Fox. Now, John Fox inherited a team off Tressman, which was terrible. And not just the head coach, bad coaching all around. Just looked like a high school team. Not disciplined, terrible. You get to Fox, and as nobody wants to admit it, Fox rebuilt everything for us. And you had solid professional coaching to a point where we looked respectable again. We weren't winning the games, but we were competing. We were close. Nobody wants to give them that credit. I always will. So you get a defensive unit that really congealed, and really start putting up great numbers. You add to that a Khalil Mack and a Roquan Smith, and you had a team that hit lightning in a bottle with the defense, and the offense really just had to do enough to stay out of the way. Couple that with a really weak schedule, and you had lightning in the bottle. That's not what Eberflus is getting. He's not getting a team on the upswing. He's getting a team on the downswing, defensively and offensively. And so this isn't a turnaround, let's go to the Super Bowl. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take some rebuilding. So that's it for me. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think, what it is that you think we need and what we should be looking for, how we should approach it. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.